When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gain, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Manifest It Now. I'm here with Cassie Parks.
And I'm here with Ginny Gain.
And Cass and I are going to jump right back into what we finished talking about last week. Well, where we finished off, we kind of sidetracked our original topic.
You think we sidetracked? I think it's all about who you have to become. I think we're talking all about deliberate creators, like to make the law of attraction work. There are these certain things about what you have to change about yourself or change in the process.
Yes.
One of those is opinions, whether you ask for other people's opinions or you go a more deliberate route.
Yes. I love it. Just a natural, perfect unfolding.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share a story just because it's right on the top of my mind. Such a simple example of how we create our reality. So this morning when I was leaving, Lisa and I were both leaving the house at the same time. She was going to work and I was going for a run. And I had just closed the door and I walked out and she was by her car and she turns around and she's like, "Oh my God, our dog just got out." And I'm like, "What?" And I raced up to kind of like, she saw a dog run by the field. I'm like, "That's impossible. I just shut the door." And, and I was yelling and I, had a mini panic and then realized it was someone else's dog and then was like, "Okay, no worries, whatever. Go about our day." And then I came back from the run. And even though I knew the dog was in the house, okay, no, door was not open. I came in and I was like, I saw Kaya and I'm like, "Where's Wally?" And I'm like, I had it in my head that he had like escaped. I looked all around the house. I looked all around the kitchen. I like went upstairs and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like where is he?" And I'm like, "Wally." And then he just like peeks his head out from under the curtain. But it was that feeling. It was that feeling of like, oh shit, he's gone. Like he's escaped. Even though I knew it didn't happen, I had that going on in my vibration. And so I literally created that experience for myself, even though it was a second.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's like how simple and easy it is. And it happens. And when you're aware of how you're feeling, what's going on in your head, you can catch that stuff. And those things are just fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah.
I have a fun story about, because even sometimes, we're all normal, we're all evolving. Like there are moments where I don't know why, just probably not being present enough, like we talked about on the last show, but like I'll question my intuition. And I was shopping for the event that I had couple weeks ago with my people, and I needed flowers and I needed some hanging flowers and I wanted like a big pot and then I wanted some other flowers to put in this wagon. And I went to get some things and then I was like, "Oh, great. King Soopers is next here. I'm going to grab," and they had flowers and the hanging ones were on sale. And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to get those." And I like kept looking and I'm like, "Just go to Costco, like, and get the rest. Like, this is what you're supposed to get here." But like, I still had this, but like, should I be like, I don't even know why. But I listened to my intuition. It wasn't very long. And I'm like, "No, get what you know here and like move on. Like, you know how to do this." Right. And,
I love the conversation we have with ourselves in the head.
Right? It's like,
you know how to do this, Cassandra.
Right. Like, stop looking at all these flowers, like move on. And so sure enough, like I got to Costco and the like buckets were much less expensive. They're much less of an investment. And I'm like, "Oh, there it is." And they had like the perfect circle one that I wanted that wasn't there. And so just because we were talking about intuition last time, I wanted to share that because that was fun. It's always following your intuition always leads to more money. And I know that, but we still have to remind ourselves, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like continual practice. Totally.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we
keep
talk
doing it.
Yeah. Keep doing it. When we talk about changing. So a lot of like that question out there is like, okay, so I get it. What I'm vibrating, what I'm putting out there, what I'm thinking, who I'm being is creating what I'm getting, is like, that's how I quote unquote make the law of attraction work for me. And Cass and I want to talk even more about changing your identity and like what that means. So I posted something a couple weeks ago about how when you place a label on yourself, anytime you place a label on yourself, it's actually like limiting, or I don't necessarily, not limiting, but it's defining, it's putting yourself in a box in some way. It's putting some boundaries on who you are, right? And so as soon as you do that, you are going to create that experience for yourself in the world. So Cass used the example. Oh, wait, I don't want to get into that one yet. But say I'm a label of I am late for, it's not really a label. I was going to say late for work.
I'm always late, or I'm
always late. Yeah. Or I'm always busy. I catch a lot of my clients on this.
Yes.
The saying like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm like, whoa, hold up. That's like all these little things. And I want to call them labels and part of your identities, because you're saying it's not as specific or defined as like a label of like, I'm a daughter, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, all these things. But oh my God, I'm going to be a wife soon. And,
yay!
But it is still, as you're labeling this, I'm an athlete, I'm someone that works out, I'm someone who's a free spirit. Anything, any way you're describing yourself or your habits is part of your identity. Okay. What do you want to say, Cass? I don't want to go too much further.
Oh, we can just dive into it. Yeah. All of those things become our identity. They become our stories, right? They become the things that repeat because they are, the story repeats because we're identifying as that. We're saying, this is who I am. And so that becomes a story that repeats because you're saying it and you said it, you identified with it, so it becomes true. And I think there are ways to deliberately, we're going to talk about this, so don't worry, we're going to talk about deliberately how to choose identities and how to consciously choose what that identity means to you. Because it, in some ways, as you were talking in the beginning, it hit me like some like identities are some, like that box that you're talking about sometimes is good because it puts a boundary. It lets us know like, no, I don't do that because this is who I am.
Okay, awesome.
Right?
I want to stop there and just highlight that how it's important to have the awareness of how you're identifying yourself, but having an identity is not, it's not good or bad. Like this is us being deliberate, is you get to choose your identity. You get to choose how you're labeling yourself. And so we're saying, yes, there are very positive and supportive and amazing identities you can have, and you choose. So you get to decide what they are.
Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is most people, the same with money stories. I say this all the time. There's money stories you pick up by default if you don't deliberately choose one, or you haven't over your life deliberately chosen one. And that's true of everything, right? There's a lot of things that we pick up by default. When we are like, oh, I'm X, so now I behave as X. Or somebody always says I'm late, right? So I'm always the late person, or whatever, which could just be that your friend is the person who's always 10 minutes early and they think you're late when you're like on time, right? But we start to like, whether it's true or not, sometimes it might be like accurate and sometimes it's not, but we start to pick up these identities and these labels unless we are deliberately choosing our own. I think that's one of the keys I want to make, is that these labels, identities, stories will all seep into you if you're not choosing your own and you're not constantly saying, no, this is who I am. Like, you're choosing for yourself deliberately.
Yes. Did you see how Cassie caught herself, guys? Because that's not what we don't say, no, this is not who I am. We say, this is who I am. That was great.
Yes.
So I love that, because I do think it's having the awareness and then choosing. And so much of that is just knowing you have the power to choose. You get to choose that. You get to choose your identities. One of the let's see, one of the, not hesitations, but things that get in the way of this when you start this work is, let's see, let's think of a money, you probably are better at this, a money identity that I never have enough. And then they're like, but I never have enough. But Cassie, that's the reality. I never have enough, right? So you want to like justify your identity, and that only keeps you there. So I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago about how you have to be willing to let go of that, let go of what's after the but kind of thing.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about what, like, it keeps you there because not often, but a lot of times your brain, it wants to keep, like, you're identified as that. And so you justify it because that's who I am. That's my identity. And often it's, who am I without that? Who am I if I don't have just enough money? Even though I'll complain about it, and I don't want to just be the person who always has, just enough, but not more, just enough. But when you don't know who that person is, that other person, that other version of you that has maybe more than enough or a lot more than enough, you will hold tight to that identity and you will justify it. And that's part of why you justify it and keep retelling it, is because it's scary. Our brain is afraid of the unknown. It doesn't like the unknown because it's unknown. It doesn't know how to keep us safe. It doesn't know how to keep us on the path. It knows how to help us survive in the situation that we're in with the identity that we have. So shifting that, there is a thing that, like, there's a reason you want to justify it, right? It's internal. There's like some biology in it, which is why we have to become more aware and more present and practice this, like we've been talking about on this episode, and will forever really. But
yeah, it really is like, and Cassie and I have talked about this before, it's really like an addictive process that happens in your brain and in the physiological parts, that there's things that are like drugs, addicted to getting that. When you justify your story, when you say, but this is who I am, and you're like the ... all those things, it's like when you eat sugar and it satisfies that part of your brain. It's not the exact same part, but it's like the same similar process. And that's why it's hard to, I don't want to say hard to break, but that's why it takes some energy and some deliberate energy to break those patterns. What was I going to, I was going to say something about, that one of the most important things Cass said is how powerful that question can be of who I am when I'm not this. So one of the biggest things, when people, a lot of the clients I work with, like, worry, they have anxiety. Well, I don't know if this is going to work out. Well, what about this? How can I trust this? And one of the questions we go over is, well, when you're not worrying, who are you? What are you doing? When you're not like anxious about trying to figure this out or control this, like, who are you? Who is that woman? And it's just like, and our brain won't naturally go there because it's going to naturally stay in our comfort zone. And so those are like challenging but very powerful questions to help you turn that arrow in where you want to go, in that right direction.
Absolutely.
And create the new identity. Yeah.
And that's why, going back to just to remind you, this is one of the reasons why we pick up things by default, because we're not choosing, we're not asking, who am I if I don't have this story, right? If my parents only had enough, like, I don't know what that's like. Like, who am I if I have more than enough? What's different? What am I spending my time doing? One of my favorites. Like, what are you doing with all that free time that you're not worrying and you're not stressed? Like, yeah.
It's really funny starting to, and there's always more and more layers to this, guys. Like, I feel like I'm a pretty self-aware person, and my lovely partner keeps pointing out new things. Did you realize you're like this? In a very loving way. But I realize I have this thing about not wanting to drive far to the gym, to go to the gym. She's like, yeah, you really care about that, like it being like a quick thing. And I was like, like, where do I get that? Like, how? Like, and I'm just like, it was so new to me. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I totally, like, that's a thing. That's part of my identity, is like not wanting to drive far or wanting exercise to be effortless and easy and not take a lot of time or something like that, And so it's cool to be able to step back and be continually discovering about what are these parts of me that I've been unconscious about for like years, that those are the ones that I've unconsciously been are coming out now that I'm becoming more aware of. And we'll always uncover those. There's always more layers of that. But knowing the power of your identity, how you are describing yourself, how you are labeling yourself, and what this, same, the stories you tell about yourself create your experience.
And I want to go back to this, like, I'm not 100% sure this is always about layers. Sometimes I think it is about layers. But as you were talking, I was thinking about this client I had a while ago, not a long time ago, but he really had this thing too. It's like, I really want to do this certain type of exercise because this is my future self. Like it was this special thing. It was in his gut. He knew like, this is it. And yet it was like, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour away. And he's like, traffic and this. And as we worked through the process, I said, when everything else in your life is easier, that traffic that used to bother you, that's created this I only go close to home thing, it's not going to be the same, right? So you're like the gym, we don't know where exactly it came from, but it could have come from a very deliberate, awesome place. Like, I choose this to be easy, and this is what defines easy in this moment. But as you grow, that's where that awareness comes in. Like, oh, now that I'm this person, I'm this version of myself. Like, let me see if this part of my identity still fits or not, if this story is still true.
Right.
Like, it's about like constantly evolving that.
Yes. And giving it room and space to evolve. That's a great example of, Cass and I talk a lot about things are fluid, things change, desires change, you change, your identity changes. And so, yes, it serves a purpose. And that's why you have to know in that moment. That's why you're constantly reassessing, who do I want to be, and you're holding on to that, not holding on, you're committing to that vision of this person until it doesn't fit you anymore, until you've kind of outgrown it.
Yeah. And that's why I kind of brought up, and whether if it feels really good to do things as layers, that's awesome. For me, it just always creates that, there's like more digging to do versus I'm like, no, I just want to like grow taller. Like, what's the next like branch coming off kind of thing.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about how identities are good, and just reinforce that, the positive parts of having an identity.
Yes. So going back to kind of what you said in the beginning, like, or this might have been on the last show, but that box, identities do put a box around us. They put sort of a boundary or a thing around us. And a lot of times that is good because it tells us who we are, which automatically tells us who we aren't. And so when we know let's use Jenny, when I'm someone who lives her truth, right? It's your identity, right? That means anything that's not your truth, you don't do. Like,
yes.
That makes it easy. There's not wishy-washy. So as long as we're choosing our identity and we choose it consciously and from, a perspective of what we want more of and what helps us, then it makes sense, right? It buffers things. We can see things more clearly because of that.
Yeah. And it really allows you to stay. It's like, it's one of those in the moment instant decisions. So when I know I'm clear about what my truth is. And last week when Lisa was calling me out on, hey, you're not living your truth, I was like, oh, you're right. And it was an instant, like, okay, I'm back in, because I know fully what that means. And someone pointing out, oh, hey, you're not being who you want to be. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it was, those boundaries are very beneficial in allowing you to like make that quick switch. It wasn't like, okay, I need to find alignment with who I am again. It's because I already know that. Spent tons of time in there. And so it's that process. I think that's powerful to be able to, having those identities sets those boundaries for you to just step back in a moment.
Yes. I'm trying to think of a couple other ones.
Well, we'll talk about the mom thing that we talked about before.
Yeah. So, and then there's identities that come with years of maybe, like that stuff that wasn't deliberate or that you just kind of took in. And so
or like society's conditioning, right? Society has
Yeah.
given this identity. Society has defined this identity.
Yes. And so like when it comes to like being mom, it can be this choice to sort of go into this like mom means I give up my life. It's chaotic.
Right.
It's not fun. There's no time for me. My kids are always first, so there's nothing left. Like you can choose that, or when you're becoming a mom, you can choose like, I am a happy mom with happy kids and we have a lot of fun. And sometimes it's messy and sometimes it's clean, right? You can really, this is the mom I am versus just I'm a mom that is a certain way. And does it mean that, so when we go back to that box, right? If I'm the mom who's, who is happy and her kids are happy and sometimes it's messy and sometimes it's clean, when like, oh no, the house hasn't been clean, or I just cleaned it and all of a sudden it's a mess again, right? We can go, if you have that identity, that's your chosen identity, you go, that's right. Like sometimes it's messy and it's all okay. Like I'm happy. How do I show up as my identity right now, right?
Yeah. That's the way I like it. I'm living my truth. That's who I am.
Right?
Yeah.
This is who I am, right? This is what I chose and it's awesome versus getting caught up in what a different identity of a mom might be about how hard it is and about how, it just sucks because the house isn't clean all the time and all of these things, right? And there's just space opens up because it's the same as like living your truth and getting back in it. It's like, oh yeah, this is who I am. And it helps you identify. So, if you end up at the park with a bunch of moms who might have a different identity of motherhood, being a mom, you're like, oh yeah, that's not for me. I'm going to stay over here. I'm going to stay in my happy lane. Like, this is me, right? And there's nothing wrong with like there being stress or there being chaos when you have kids. Like it's a different world, right? It's just who you choose to be inside that world.
I think it's
doing it. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, doing it deliberately will make you much happier because one of the things I think that one of the reasons we get default identities and we take on all the things that come with them is, actually I just lost my train of thought. One of the reasons is, we just don't choose it. Like when we choose it, we just feel more empowered. So if we pick up something by default, it by default doesn't feel powerful. But when we choose, I'm a mom now, I'm a wife now, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a this, and this is what that means to me, we're just more powerful.
Yeah. I think that's the like take home point for all of this is be freaking deliberate.
Yes.
But I do think like there is a lot of those societal labels that we either people like to place on us or we place on ourselves without specifically defining what that means for us. So like I'm just going to, homeowner means something to most people. Business owner means something to most people. CEO means something to most people. Mom means something to most people. Single parent means something to most people. Dog owner means, adventurer means like everything. There's millions of labels in this world, and you don't have to adopt what you think it means or what most people think it means. You get to choose what that means for you. And that is how you create your identity. And so when you're creating your reality, you can obviously see how important it is for you to define as a part of that your own identity. Who is it that fits into that world and lives that life?
And this, like, consciously choosing this, writing it down, gives you more power because a lot of times the reason we think all these people are this way is like it's just some handed down, like homeowners have to like do their lawn all weekend and they have to go to like, the hardware store all the time and be working on a project, right?
Yeah.
And so that automatically becomes where we think we connect with people. And one of the ways about being deliberate is to be deliberate and bring a higher level of connection, which means we don't just enter the sort of the complaining about the traditional identity or that groove of that traditional identity, right? We ask questions like, what's your favorite thing about your house? Right? Like, what's your favorite place in your yard? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you love going home instead of like, oh, did you have to mow the lawn yesterday? You know?
So I want to highlight that because that is one of the parts of that provides comfort is that, and we all want to feel like we are connecting with other people. And these labels, sometimes that's what they do. But Cassie's saying, hey, you can connect. It doesn't have to be on the downside of other things. Like this stuff happens all the time of like people throwing jokes around of, I don't know why I'm thinking of dads right now, but you know,
it's almost Father's Day, or it might be Father's Day when this comes out in the U.S.
So perfect timing. Happy Father's Day. But you know, like there's these ideas that like, oh, you know, got to go home to the wife or you know, that's just don't bond over that. That doesn't feel good.
Right.
Bond over I get to go home to my family, you know, or you get to choose how these labels and groups and everything are meaning and resonating with you, what you want them to mean. Yeah.
Yes. So much better.
Yeah. Well, any final? Go ahead.
I was going to say, and when you choose your identity purposely, like you know what fits in that box. And so you can immediately change those conversations and up-level them and connect in different ways.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just so much about being deliberate. Be aware of what you're thinking in your head, how you're labeling things, how you're talking about yourself. And just remember, you get to choose. You get to decide all of this. And that's going to determine the kind of experience you're having.
Yes. And the more you choose, the more choices there is to make, which is fun.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, when I choose like this, I'm like, okay, but then do I want it like this way or that way or that way? And like you get to keep choosing to make it better and more juicy and more fun to be living your life. Yeah.
And you're just like Cass said, your choices are limitless. Like there is no limit to what you get to choose in this area. Anything is possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, have another amazing week, everybody. And Cassie and I we are going to do a little pop in the Facebook group when it's wedding time. So if you guys are in that group, you'll see that. But after that, we will catch you next week.
Bye.
Go be awesome. Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.